Welcome to the Joe Pavich podcast. This show is all about what got people where they are today. Work-life mix, struggles, the grind, the process, and the message. Welcome to the Joe Show. Today I'd like to introduce my guest, Scott Robertson. Scott is an auctioneer with Champion Fundraising Auctions. Definitely a local celebrity. Scott has raised over $500 million. Man, that's impressive. Over 1,000 organizations. Today we're going to talk about the life of an auctioneer. The struggles, the grind, the work-life mix, before a show, during, and after, and get to know this guy right here. Scott, great to see you.
Well, thank you, Joe. I'm pleased to be here and honored, and we're going to have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. I got to tell you, the life of an auctioneer, man, you got that job where you're on stage and everybody that's watching that show is saying, I do not want to be up there doing this, because that's a tough job. Public speaking, motivation, being clear, crisp, get the crowd going. That's impressive.
Well, what I hear a lot of times before an auction, people come up to me with grave concerns. They're like, Scott, you've got to understand, this is their biggest fundraiser of the entire year, and we just really have to have the money so we can sustain our organization for the next year. I get it.
Yeah.
I understand. I understood before they told me. But, I want the weight, right? I put the ball in my hands, right?
That's right.
I want to take that last shot. You just put it right here. I thrive on that pressure.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, you want to hear that before you go out there. But you're the kind of guy I think gives 130%, even if they didn't tell you that. You're going out there ready to go.
Yeah. I don't need to be told that,
yeah.
Right? I understand how important it is. And even regardless, I'm going to give it my 100% all. People say, well, Scott, I'm sure sometimes you have an off night. Nope, I have not.
You can't.
And I don't, because they're depending on me to be that guy.
That's right.
And yeah, I don't allow that.
I've always been impressed because at these events, recently saw you at the Wine Fest. Great job, by the way. But I'm always impressed. You come out with a bang. The intro starts, and man, you are out there, and it's impressive. Is there like a little walk-up song that you put on your headset before you go out there?
Well, a lot of people do that, right? Basketball players, football players, and other auctioneers do that. I don't, but I'm more of a silent meditation person.
Okay.
So I always tell people that, I'm around, I'm available. I always stay in one part of the room, so if people have questions or whatever, but if you don't see me about 5 minutes before the event, don't look.
Yeah.
Because I'm not meditating per se, but I'm getting my head around everything. I'm figuring out what words I'm going to use.
Yeah.
And I'm just totally focused.
I love that.
And my wife would be quick to tell you that Scott's no fun right before an auction. I can't help it.
Don't talk to him. If you can't find him, leave him.
That's exactly right. I can't help it. And don't ask me a question that's not related to the auction. In fact, don't even ask me a question about the auction. I've already got it figured out.
I love it.
But just let me be in my own head so that I can do a great job for the charity.
Yeah.
And I will.
My walk-up song today was Metallica.
Yeah?
Yeah, the old school Metallica. Who doesn't love Metallica, right? I know you like that music.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to have a little something that motivates you, morning routines, music, whatever it is. But it's impressive. And I know you come out with a bang every time. And it's just great to see you work the crowd. It's interesting with being an auctioneer because it's the eye contact. It's the crowd. It's reading the crowd. What are some of the traits of an auctioneer?
Well, and I want to go back, if we could, to talk about that walk-up music. And it's important for me to come out with energy because it's a transition. So transitions in fundraising auctions are incredibly important, right? You have to have transitions, and you can't have slides, right? You sort of go from one to a sort of going to another. Heck no. You got to go from here to there, and there's got to be a little gap in the middle for that, for the transition to work. And so when I come out to energy, yes. And I try to, and I don't want to be super high energy. My goal, and I teach this to my students, I've taught a lot of fundraising auctioneers, but I want to be 10% higher energy level than the audience is at that moment.
Okay.
Now, if I can bring them along to a higher energy level, but still only staying 10 minutes or 10% ahead of them, we're winning.
Yep.
We're winning. But if you come out and their energy levels here and your energy levels here, it offends people, right? You can't offend people. We're all in this together, and you roll forward with it. And then if you can get them up to 70, 80%, man, they're swinging off the chandeliers. Yeah, we're winning.
Yeah,
We're
that's
winning.
great. I've been to many of your events before, and it's just amazing to see how you work the crowd. It's like you get the look from you. Like if there's bids going on, I get the look, and it almost pulls you into the being in the moment, really.
Absolutely, and that's my job. People are like,
I wanted to raise, but I want the next. There's an item that I'm looking for on the silent auction or something, and I want to bid on that, but it's almost like.
Well, and my job is to recognize that and figure out what it's going to take to get you to raise that paddle one more time.
Recognize my weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in a way, yes. But my goal is to help you get what you want, and your goal is to help the charity and hopefully take home something great in the process.
Yeah. It's a great feeling being there, though, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And, and everybody's got little different tells and different things. Some people, when they say no, they mean no, they're not going to bid anymore.
Yeah.
Other people, when they say no, and
with a question mark.
With a question mark, and boy, when they get that question mark, I know no doesn't mean no, and I may just stay with them a little bit longer.
Yeah. Reading people again, right?
Oh.
That's something that really can't, maybe it can be taught, but it's one of those arts that you're, I think, born with.
100%. And reading people, yes. Badgering people, no. No, I don't badger people. Well, they might think I do, but I don't. My intent is never to badger someone or never belittle someone. Or, my job is to build people up and to raise as much money as we can for the charity.
Speaking of raising money.
And have fun along the way.
Yeah, and you do. And we do. We have fun. So, Scott, at the wine festival, speaking of raising money, how much did you raise for that event?
That was a great event. And just within the room, right? So that's the paddle raise and the live auction. We did we did pretty close to 2.6 million, but let's not exaggerate. Let's call it 2.5 million plus.
Yeah.
And that was within the room. That didn't include ticket sales, sponsorships, anything like that. That's how much we raised in the room.
That's impressive. So
the generosity just overflowed. And,
great cause.
Oh, and some of those people have been there. Some of those great, and I mean, they're friends. And they've been at the wine festival auction since it started.
Yeah.
And that's been a long time, right? So I've been fortunate enough that I've done, almost all of them. I didn't do one year. And
how many have there been?
I think we started in 2000. There's an argument whether we started in 2004 or 2007. So I should know the answer to that question real quick, but I don't.
But you've been to every one except one.
Everyone but one. And and I had another gig, and when they booked the date, and they said, so I talked to the person who was in charge of the event, and he said, Scott, I owe you an apology. I'm like, not me. He says, I thought an auctioneer was an auctioneer. I didn't realize what you brought to the table. And I've been there ever since. That was in about 2007 or 8.
Yeah. Well, there's good auctioneers and there's great auctioneers, right?
Well, and that's true.
You're one of the greats.
Well, thank you. I like to think that I am. And, I've spent a lot of time, right? I spent a lot of time, a lot of resources, and I know all the fundraising auctioneers across the country. We're all connected. We attend, national conventions through the National Auctioneers Association. There's a specialist designation called the Benefit Auction Specialist, and I've taught that about 10 years.
Okay.
Or maybe it's a little bit more than that. I don't know. But it's teaching people how to be fundraising auctioneers. So when I started out, right, in 1994, I guess I may be getting ahead of myself, but when I started out in 94 and found out that fundraising auctions were my niche, or niche, it depends on how you want to pronounce it, I didn't know. I had no role models hardly to follow.
Sure.
Barely. Right? And so I'm figuring all this stuff out on my own, and then I get involved with the National Auctioneers Association, meet fellow benefit auctioneers, and find out, well, The good news is what you were thinking about was right. The bad news is it took you about 10 times longer to learn how to do it than I can teach you in a 24-hour class.
Yeah, because I don't think I only know one auctioneer. I may know of another one in town, but I mean, it's not like my business, Scott. I got 14,000 realtors in town, right? I'm one of 14,000. One of the OGs, though, Scott. I'm an OG. What could I say? I'll go way back.
Hey, your face is on Bill. Everybody knows Joe Pavich. I mean, everybody.
Well,
or at least
now they got to watch the show. Now they got to see the show.
Yeah,
so they can see Scott and Joe. That's the way it goes. So, Scott, for the viewers, talk about being an auctioneer. Give people an idea of what it is that your spectrum of auctions, licenses, things like that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, one thing about auctioneering is it's 90% preparation and 10% execution. It's like a football team, right? Everybody sees the team play on Sunday afternoon, right? And they think, wow, they're so lucky. All they've got to do is
show up
and throw the ball. And it's like, no, they earned their skill way ahead of time.
Sure.
And just because you're really good doesn't mean you don't have a lot of preparation. I mean, you just have seen my notebook for the wine festival. It was a 3-ring binder, and it was about this thick.
I want to see it. I want to flip through that thing.
I mean, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of tabs. I have a lot of help putting it together, but there's a whole lot to it. So it's a lot of preparation, and then knowing what to do. Right, and knowing when to do it, and allowing yourself enough time, and so that you're fully there. I haven't answered your question at all.
No, you are, because I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I want to see this. I want to see this binder.
And I tell you, I had it in my office. And an unsung hero that people don't see are the I call them auction assistants. Some people call them bid spotters, but they do so much more than that. But they're the people, and it's usually ladies, that work the crowd, right? And so they work the crowd and signal bids to me, right? Because I can't see everything, right? You can only see so much, and they're in the periphery, peripheral vision of the whole thing. And then the most important thing they do, I won't say is record the sale. So we used to, the charity always provided their recorders. Well, there was a lot of problems afterwards when they'd say, Scott, who'd you sell that to? And they're asking me 3 days after the event. Oh, I don't even remember the item, much less who I sold it to.
Yeah.
And
are they on your team, Scott? The spotters? Is that part of your?
They're absolutely part of my team, and they're led by my wife, Mary. Dr. Mary Robertson, if you will, who taught math in Lee County for years and years and years. And I tell you, I had a real advantage to having a wife who is completely competent in math, is that when we do the special appeal, the fund to need, right, where people call, I call out at a number, call out an amount, and then read the numbers and all that, and she writes it down. She hates it when I say this, but she'll have that number, that total. She'll have it within 30 seconds. I've never seen anybody else do this, right? I mean, they might get there with a calculator in 2 or 3 minutes, but not in 30 seconds and not doing the math in her head. And she goes, Scott, it's just arithmetic. She can call it that if she wants. It's freaking amazing that she's able to come up with that number. And I don't mean a small number either. I mean, some of these events, they go into the millions.
Well, like you just said, 2.5 million. There's a show on TV. You ever seen that one where they have people counting like pennies, and they're to astronomical amounts and have to be within like $1. They can't be off. And if they can count all the money, they win. No, I don't think anybody's ever won the show because they're counting millions of dollars and they have to keep track of it.
Wow.
And if you win, you win. You take it all.
My wife's analytical mind might just be able to pull that off.
Yeah, we should get her on there for sure. Scott, what types of auctions can you do?
So I used to do all sorts of auctions, right? Real estate, jewelry, pots and pans, Tupperware, furniture. I used to do a high-end furniture. It was pretty much furniture auction up in St. Petersburg, and I used to go there, once a month, every Sunday, and did it for very little money. But I did it because I wanted to learn more. This was in the 90s.
Yeah.
So I'm I'm able to I'm licensed to sell, essentially anything, cattle. I can,
Anything.
I could do that. But I found out that my niche was fundraising auctions. And so I specialized in that, and I don't do anything else anymore. I don't do real estate auctions anymore.
Sure.
I have, but I haven't.
How did you
anymore.
find out that was your niche?
Oh, wow. We didn't talk about this, but that is such a great question.
Scott, you're on the Joe Show. I mean, that's what it's all about.
You're reading my mind. Well, when you first get your auction license, let's go back to licensing for a minute, right? So you go to auction school, and everybody thinks that's where they teach you how to talk fast. They really don't.
Nothing to do with that, I'm sure.
No, it's
right?
practice. But it's all the rules and the regulations.
Sure.
It's kind of like going to real estate
Ethics
school.
and,
They don't tell you how to sell houses.
No.
They don't tell you, and, they teach you about the rules and regulations. Auction school is pretty much the same thing. So back in the day, before technology, they only gave the test twice a year. Every 6 months they gave the test. And to apply for the test, you had to have completed auction school. And the test was given in Orlando. I'm taking school in Orlando. And the class finished on a Sunday, and they gave the test on Monday. Now, why they were so short-sighted, I don't know, but they did. So I had to wait 6 months before I could do anything. And the deal was, if you don't have a license in the state of Florida, you cannot get paid. You can do charity auctions, you just can't get paid for them.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know short attention span theater me, I've got to get my license and I've got to get going. And I started volunteering at various fundraisers events. The first one was out on Bayshore at a church. I drove by and I saw a sign and I stopped in and said, "Hey, do you all need an auctioneer?" Well, yeah.
Nice.
So there we go. So anyway, fast forward, and I'm working with a couple of friends of mine who are auctioneers up in the Tampa area for a hospital there. And they're really good auctioneers, right? They've been at it for a long time, and I'm a newbie. I don't know anything. And so we kind of took turns being the auctioneer, and they did it in the daytime, and then they did it in the evening. And this person named Rita said, "Now, Scott, I want you to sell what was the high dollar item that night." This was the second year I was there, and I really want you to do this. And I'm like, "Oh, come on, not me. I mean, you could have Jeff or Neil, either one, because they know much." She goes, "You don't get it, do you?" And I go, "What?" She said, "You're the talent here. Those guys are fine fellas, but you're the real talent." And the light bulb went off. I had no idea. So, based with that confidence, I turned it into a career.
That's great. That's a great story. You had no idea. You didn't even believe you believed in yourself, but you didn't really think you were.
Yeah, but I was low man on the totem pole, right?
Yeah.
I was third or fourth. I was child number 3, right?
Wow.
I was used to everybody being better than me, right? And I worked out. Her name was Rita Haywood. Haven't talked to her in 30 years, but Rita Haywood.
Wow.
And she really helped me.
That's
really
impressive. That's impressive. So at that point, you loved doing that, but you had to still go through the process, right? Through trying different auctions to realize.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
What's like jewelry and watches and all these things? You see these shows on TV, right? One of the most impressive auctions I've seen was the shredded painting. You remember the shredded painting?
No, I didn't see that one.
That was Banksy, the artist. Sotheby's auction. They had that painting, several $1 million. I think it was a $500,000 or $600,000 painting, right? All of a sudden, somebody bids on it. I think they bid $1 million on it. They bid on it, and the painting is there. And the painting starts shredding itself. It starts falling down, shredding itself, right on the spot, in front of everybody. And apparently, the painting is worth more now than it was then because it's the one painting that shredded itself. So I guess, I don't know what happened there. But
hey, and it's got us talking about it. So,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sell the sizzle, don't sell the steak.
Yeah. So that'd be pretty cool to say, hey, I have the painting that got shredded. But you see all these auctions all over the place, like car auctions. You ever tried car auctions?
I've sold some cars before. I've never been a car auctioneer per se.
Yeah.
Because I really think Well, if you're going to work at it full time, you've got to be around. Those guys work a circuit. I mean, they may sell cars in the morning in Tampa and in the afternoon in Orlando.
Sure.
And so they really travel that I-4
Yeah.
quadrant. And I really like Southwest Florida, so I kind of wanted to stay here. And there is an auto auction in Southwest Florida, but I kind of like fundraising auctions.
You ever go to different auctions to learn different styles from different people?
Oh, yeah.
My
My
like
goodness.
a Meekum auction?
Yeah.
That's a cool
yeah,
auction.
I know those, yes. And
Do you know
Barrett
some of
Jackson.
the auctioneers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
That's really cool because the fact that you have all these friends that are auctioneers around the world, I've been a firm believer in getting along with your competition, right? I mean, you guys all want to be the best you can, but why not get along with each other and run different ideas by each other? That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, the National Auctioneers Association has been amazing, and I've been active since the 90s. And one of the great things about is that, we all show up, we're all there for the national conference,
Yeah.
but we all know each other, right? And I've never seen an organization that was so giving,
Love it.
where everybody else is sort of cutthroat, right? And they're not going to share the national auction, unless they're the person next door.
Yeah.
Now, if they're the person next door, you probably aren't going to want to share too much
Sure.
with them. But if they're your direct competitors, but there's lots of direct competitors out there,
Yeah.
and they're nice to each other. And speaking of direct competitors, I got to shout out to two local AV teams, audiovisual teams.
Okay.
I mean, Tektronix and Harman's Audiovisual, and they're both excellent.
Yeah.
They're both excellent, and they're both direct competitors. They all bid on the same jobs, and you know what? They can work a job together, right? They share equipment. They share
Competitors.
people,
Yeah.
right? I've never seen anything like it, but it really comes from the top down. I mean,
Yeah.
Ted Rimke and Jim Harmon are just nice people to begin with,
Yeah.
and they've developed a culture. And it's just so much more productive when people are nice to
You're
each
right.
other,
Yeah.
as opposed to looking over their shoulder thinking someone's trying to take my cheese.
Yeah. Who moved my cheese?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Scott, let's have some fun today. Listen, I love hearing you, at these auctions. I'm gonna have you kind of work with me here, teach me how to get. I want the
Okay.
voice. I want to learn the voice a little bit. So give me a little something.
Absolutely. So one of the first things you do, I don't know if you can tell from me talking, but I'm just basically talking from my throat right now. But when I'm auctioneering, I'm going to speak from my diaphragm. I'm going to speak from down here. Now, the voice gets a little bit deeper, but it gets a lot more full, right? A lot richer sounding. So I'm always going to start from down here. I mean, I can push right there on my chest and I can feel it.
Feel the air in there, right?
Yeah, right there. So you're going to project, and that's very important. I mean, I know you got a microphone and everything else, but it's important to be right there.
Right there. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So give me a little something. Let's auction off something real
Yeah.
quick.
And so if you're going to do it, let's go with 25 and work our way to 75.
Okay.
All right,
All
in
right.
$5 increments.
Okay.
25 and now 30, 25 and now 30 and 35, at 35 now 40, 40 now 45, at 45 now 50, 45 and now 50. Come on, Joe, at 45 and now 50. I thought you would, at 45 and now 50, 55, at 55 and now 60, 55 and now 60. So, $50, $55, excuse me.
That's impressive. I don't even. I can't even follow
Sure
that.
you can.
I can't follow that. But
25.
I'm gonna try. All right. All right, here we go. You ready? I got to get psyched up for it. Get that Metallica music out. Let me get a little walk-up song here. 25 now, 30 now, 25 now, 25. All right, let's go 30. Let's go 30. Let's go 30, 30. Let's go 35, 35, 35. Scott Robertson, 35. All right, let's go 40, 40, 45, 50, 50, 55, 55, 55, 60. Let's go. 60 sold. Scott Robertson. Was that bad, Scott? That
No,
had to be bad.
I'm going to hang in my shit.
That had to be.
I'm whooped.
That
right?
had to be bad right there.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give it up right now. Cut the website. I'm done it. Joe is going to be the fundraising auctioneer.
That was stressful, though. That was a little stress there. That's a big deal.
Well, then one of the things that you have to do, if I could coach you for a minute,
Was that as bad as it?
You're asking a question.
Yeah.
And really, you don't ask a question. When you go, 55? 55.
Nice. With authority.
With
I like that.
authority.
55 sold, right? 55,
There you go.
55, 55, let's go 60. 60, 60, let's go 65, 70. See, I got 10 grand more right there.
Remarkably different.
I got 10 grand more right there.
That's right. And that's remarkable that you did it with when you did it with confidence and you didn't do it with questioning.
Yeah.
You sounded so much better because you need to inspire confidence in the bidders.
It's a lot. So see, I did about 30 seconds of that. I'm already whooped. I could imagine a whole day out there. That's got to be crazy. So how do you start developing that voice? You know, the tone.
Oh gosh, I learned how to ask my wife. I learned how to auction by driving up the interstate and going by light poles. So when you went by a light pole, you changed to the next increment in the bids.
Wow.
All right. 25 and 25, and now 25, 25, light pole 30. At 30, now 35, 35. At 35, now 40. Man. The light poles came up pretty quick then. But you practice and you...
At first, you probably drove a little slower, so they come up a little
slower.
You're going 40 on 75 because you need more time. You know, we should have your wife in here to talk about some of these stories because, you know, I'm sure she's got some good
and she's been there through them all.
Yeah. But I've always thought, what a cool career. It's the career that everybody's scared to death of. They don't want that. They want you to be up there.
Well, and, public speaking, right? It's people's biggest fear.
It is. It really is.
And fundraising. Nobody wants to ask people for money. And auctioneering, you get to combine both.
Yeah. Do you get nervous at all before you get on stage?
Yes and no. I love nervous energy, right? I love that factor. I had it Saturday at the Southwest Florida Wine Festival. Yeah. And I told somebody, I said, if I ever lose my nerve, I'm out of a job. But I love that nervous energy, right? Because it really helps me to focus. It really helps me out with that energy.
Yeah.
It helps me. It's not like, well, gosh, got to go do another auction. Okay, who wants to buy this? Nobody.
I've been at auctions like that, by the way.
Well,
it's not good.
It wasn't good, was it?
No, they didn't raise $2.5 million, I can tell you that much. So, Scott, let's talk about before you get on stage. So, you ever have a little drink before you get on stage? Just to calm the nerves a little bit. Yeah, I got to ask the question, Scott.
I know.
You're in the interrogation room here.
Never.
Yeah.
Never, 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 never. As I always like to say, I've never had a drink before an auction, but I've never not had a beer afterwards.
I was going to say afterwards, you just have to.
Well, you got to put the fire out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But no, I want to be I need to be 100%.
Yep.
Right? I need to be 100%. I don't need anything to dull me down, and I sure as heck don't need anything to relax me. I don't want to be relaxed. I want to be fired up. And not to mention, so if I'm going along, right, I'm 55 and I trip over my tongue, you're laughing, right? Because you would laugh that was going to happen. Well, Scott tripped over his own tongue. That's just so funny. Well, did you hear he was drinking? I saw him drink. He was drinking.
Yeah,
next thing you know, he was drunk. And the next thing you know, I don't let anybody have that. No, not a chance.
Put out the fire. I like that afterwards.
Well, you've said a whole lot of words.
Yeah.
And one of the things, and it kind of goes back to one of your questions, is I like to call it staying in the box, right? It's very important for an auctioneer to stay in the box with their voice because it's so easy to do the locomotive. And the locomotive is 25 and now 30, 30 now 35, at 35 now 40, 40 now 45, 45 now 50, 55.
Yeah.
And now you sound like a teenage boy going through puberty.
Good point.
You've got to stay in the box.
In the box. I like that. That's a good point.
Don't let your voice...
You'll run out of breath real quick by doing that.
Yes. Oh. And breath is everything.
Yeah. So during the show, let's go back to that for a second. So obviously you have spotters. What else goes on during the show? Who else? What else is on your team? You got your wife's adding up the numbers. You got your team of people looking at stuff. It's got to be kind of hard though because there's so many paddles going up at these events. Sometimes a paddle's raised, maybe it's not caught. Sometimes it's not the right one. Who knows?
Sure.
I was at an auction once. I got to tell you this story. A friend of mine, you know him. I'm not going to mention his name, and I don't want to throw him under the bus. But it was kind of a funny story. I left an auction. It was last year's Wine Fest, and he was sitting next to me. He grabbed my paddle. He was joking around, and he was taking a picture with his wife, like a selfie. Look, take a picture of me holding up Joe's paddle. Well, an auctioneer saw that and raised, and he go, hey, number 392 for whatever it was. And he called me up. He goes, I was playing a joke on you, and I hope you don't get an invoice. But if you do, let me know. I'll pay it. So it's like a joke that might have turned bad.
Yeah.
Know?
Well, auctioneers, we're trained to see a flash of skin, right? Or a flash of white.
Yeah.
So when we see a flash of white, boom, it captures our attention.
Yeah.
And we're looking at the entire room, right? Say there's 400, 500 people in the room, right? You're scanning. You see a flash of white. That usually means a bid. And so you take that bid and you move on.
Yeah.
Because especially in the early stages of bidding. And one of the things you said about missing a bid, a bid isn't missed, right? If 4 people raise their hands at a certain bid level, I get to make a choice on who I pick the one who I saw raise it first. But regardless, I get to make that decision split second.
Yeah.
And you really hope that somebody else bids so that these people all have another chance at it. So just because your bid wasn't recognized and somebody else's was, we didn't miss your bid.
Yeah.
You only miss a bid is when someone bids and that would have won the item.
Sure.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because, 4 paddles and, if I started out, hey, we're going to sell a brand new Rolls Royce. Who will start me off at $10,000? Well, every hand in the house is going to go up, right? It's not going to sell for $10,000.
That's right.
So just because someone the auctioneer didn't recognize your particular bid, there were other bids available. You just need to bid higher.
Yeah. Yeah. Every event I've been at here, it seems like the crowd is together, right? There's never any fights back and forth. Have you ever been at like an auction where people are, fighting over an item? They just keep bidding and just. You ever seen the?
I live for that.
Yeah, that happens.
I live for that.
And that happens.
Well, and they're not fighting over it. They're
like, I can't believe you're driving up my price now. I got to pay more. Now you got to pay more. Now I got to pay. I mean, you must see that all the time.
Well, it becomes a game of one-upsmanship, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I was doing an auction out in Sonoma one time, and it was just two ladies were bidding against each other. And anyway, there were 2 ladies bidding against each other to the point they ended, and they were so going at each other, they both ended up standing on their chair.
Wow.
And they weren't bidding to me, they were bidding to that person. Now, of course, I'm just taking it along. Here we go.
You got to just have nothing you could do but sit back and enjoy the show on that one. That's going back and
just
forth.
Keep up in the right, and the more money and the higher the number went, the more the charity made. So that was fun.
That's great. 500 million plus. It says plus on your site, by the way. That means it's a lot more than 5. I'm sure it is now. What's the most you've ever raised in one show?
I know the answer to that, and that is 4.6 million.
Wow.
4.6 million at the Sonoma County event, the Sonoma Wine Festival.
4.6 million.
Right. And it was the number 3 wine auction in the world.
Wow. That's impressive.
And what's, that number sounds impressive, right? But the impressive number is that 4 years before that, before I became on board, they were at 700,000. And then I came on board and we got it up to more than 1 million. And then they listened. A friend of mine, Kathy Kingston, was the auction consultant. I was the auctioneer. In between the two of us, we helped them realize their potential, which is the huge thing, and got them up to where it got up to $4.6 million. Most organizations don't understand their potential.
Yeah. And you're there to help them figure it out.
That's exactly right. Again, preparation.
Yeah.
But they don't understand they have more potential to raise more money. Last year, there were, in 2024, between January and May, I'd helped 12 different organizations exceed $1 million. And every one of those organizations had the same thing in common. They both started out as small fundraising events, right? But they listened, and they did a lot of things on their own, and they developed, and they increased it. to 12 of them raising more than $1 million. And I mean, some of them raised way more than $1 million.
And do you sit down with everybody prior to and talk about what they're auctioning just to help build it up, right?
Well, yeah, and it's not just what they're. It's the whole mindset. I mean,
Consultant,
there is
more than just an auctioneer.
Oh yeah, there is so much.
Consulting people through the process of what
It's
to
like
do.
being the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
You're the quarterback at the football game, but that's not where it all happened.
Yeah.
It all happened leading up to it.
That's right.
So that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it exciting, and that's what separates me from most people. I am not a bid caller, right? I don't call the auction.
Yeah.
All right. I'm way more than that. I'm way more.
It's got to be a pretty competitive environment in a sense, right? Because I can't imagine every event, especially if you don't know who's running it, they're probably interviewing different auctioneers for the job, aren't they? It's like real estate, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I thrive on job interviews.
Yeah.
Just don't try to beat me. Just don't let price be your only determination. I ask them early if that's their number one determination. If they say yes, I go, well, you've called the wrong guy.
Well, it's like real estate, right? If I can get you 50 grand more and you got to pay me 5 grand more, isn't that a good deal? I'll give you 5. You know, if you were to give me 5 and I give you back 50, I mean, wouldn't you be happy with that?
Yeah, I have.
It's the same business, right? I mean, it's not the same, but it's similar.
I just had a conversation just a couple of weeks. Well, we've only been in January a few weeks, but just a couple of weeks ago with a group that I used to do, and then somebody new came in, and anyway, they wanted to go with the free auctioneer, and they did. And I heard stories
For sale by
about
owner.
it. And anyway,
Real estate.
yeah. And so they said, hey Scott, and they raise a considerable amount of money,
Yeah.
right, close to $1 million.
Sure.
And they said we can't afford you. And I'm like, do you realize if you had just stuck with me, how much further along we would be?
Yeah.
Because Don't make it a one-hit wonder. And people say change is good. Change is not necessarily good. You need somebody who knows your organization,
That's right.
knows your people, knows what makes them tick, knows what went right and what went wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's like a real estate. The $500 listing, I'll sell your home for $500. I don't care what you get, but I'm going to sell your house for $500. That's what it's all about. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And the old adage of you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Yes. And hey, listen, when it's easy, right? When people, as a friend of mine, Marty Higginbotham from Lake, he's a world-renowned auctioneer, and he said, Scott, I used to work for him in the 90s, and he said, when people are swinging off the chandeliers trying to bid, anybody could do our job.
Yeah.
Where we earn our fee is when the going gets tough.
That's right.
And knowing what to do. And the same thing, even with fundraising auction, knowing what to do, knowing when to push, knowing when to pull, knowing when to back off, knowing, that's really
Kenny
important.
Rogers.
And right, exactly. And
know when to hold them, know when to fold them, right?
Exactly right. And
the gambler.
And know when no means no, and know when no means maybe. That's it. But then stuff happens. Stuff happens. Heck, last week, a gentleman fell out of his chair. He wasn't drunk, but he fell out of his chair. Well, what do? You got to be, one is, so what did I do? I stopped the auction. I said, we'll be right back with you. And now my nature of helping people was to run over and help that person.
Yeah.
But I had to throttle myself back and say, Scott, don't do that. There's other people that can help him. You need to stay in front of this audience and keep them going without being too pushy.
That's got to be a hard decision to make because what would you do?
Oh, yeah.
Do you just keep going, act like you don't see them, keep talking, go to this side? I mean, that's a tough, but you made the right decision.
It is. And you got
Shut it down.
You have to keep, you got to keep people calm down. Do you talk? Do you not talk?
That's right.
But you've got to have presence. That's what it's really all about, is having presence.
That's right. A lot of these auctions where you're doing them year after year, it's got to be a little harder, right? Because you set a record last year and you got to set a record this year and then you got to keep going, right? But I'll bet if you go into a new auction where a different auctioneer had a pretty good number last year, to beat the auctioneer from last year, I'll bet it must be, must just really drive you because it would drive me.
It does. It does drive you. I thought you were saying it's going to be pretty tough, but no. It's a motivating
just
factor.
Make you want to go, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I usually win that. I usually win.
I wouldn't want to be the one, the year after you, that's for sure. Well, just like I was trying to imitate you on the auctioneer voice, you can't do it. You can't do it. I can't hang with you.
Well, you're very kind, and I don't think I could sell houses like you either, Joe.
We know what we know, and we think it's so easy because that's what we do every single day. Not easy, but if somebody gives me a home and they want a value on it, I can pull that in 5 seconds. That's what we do, right? But what other people do impresses me too. Different walks of life and everything else.
Well, and funny that you mentioned that it's easy, because I know when I've done a great job at a fundraising event is when someone comes up to me and they say one of two things. Wow, you made it look so easy.
Yeah.
Or it just looked like you are having so much fun.
Yeah.
And when I hear those two things,
that's what you want to hear.
I know I've nailed it.
Yeah. The hardest part of my job, Scott, is that it's more of the people. I would say the homes are a lot of these homes are beautiful, right? This one's got golf access. This one, I got a new listing near you, by the way, up by you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pretty close. But it's the sellers, it's the buyers sometimes. Sometimes you're in a deal and you want the sale more than the seller wants to sell and the buyer wants to buy. That happens. And sometimes there's a beautiful home that takes a long time and it won't sell because the seller doesn't really want it to sell. It doesn't want to be reasonable with the price. But, my goal is to bring the best offer I can to people and just advise them through the process. My job is far from easy, but my hardest parts are getting people to agree. You bring an offer to them and they go, hey, that's way too low. And I'm like, no, that's a phenomenal offer. You got to take that. But the hardest part sometimes is the emotion, the people.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got to be in the middle. And I got to tell the seller, listen, I know you're disappointed with this buyer. He lowballed you. I got him up. Forget about it. Don't worry about it. Let's take the deal. Let me deal with the rest of it. And there's times I got to just keep quiet. I can't. The seller's telling me something. The buyer's telling me something different. And I got to just stay in my lane and keep them. It's like a fight.
Yeah.
Referee.
And staying in your lane and doing what you do well.
Yeah.
Right? Doing what you do best.
That's right.
That's really important.
Yeah.
I always laugh because there's lots of part-time lots of people that are kind of part-time in the field. And, they're really good because they're really funny and they just love people. And it's like, yeah, I know. I eat, sleep, and breathe this business every day. I'm not distracted because I don't have another job doing something else. Yeah. This is what I do.
Eat, breathe.
And it doesn't matter what, you want to call me at 9 o'clock in the morning? I'll answer the phone. Yeah. I'm there. You want to heck, you can call me at 7 o'clock at night. My wife probably doesn't appreciate me answering the phone. But
I did.
Yeah. And did I answer the phone?
Yeah, you're actually consolidating one of the events when I called you. Remember you're tallying up all the numbers and everything else.
Yeah, we call that reconciliation. And that's something else that my auction assistants do, which is just it's phenomenal to watch. Nobody else sees it. But so if you have 2 or 3 auction assistants working with you that night and they've recorded that night, then as soon as the auction's over, you cannot find them. You know why? Because they've gone to a quiet spot, right? And they're going over the list to make sure that everybody's numbers mesh and gel, right? And if somebody's got a question, then they do that. And then when they're finished, now we have accurate information. Yeah. We don't have guesses. Lots of times at fundraising events going, and we're going to have 10 people that are going to be recorders. You don't need 10. You need 1.
One good one.
Good one.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, and there's stories about people being drunk doing it or drinking doing it. And it's just, you can't do
I want to hear a little bit about that. So tell me some of the stories, I want to go to that one story that was a surprise for an auction.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it's kind of like I used to be a teacher. It's kind of like a teacher. You ask a first-year teacher, they've got all the stories in the world. You ask a 30-year teacher, and if it didn't happen that day, they probably don't remember
it, yeah.
But one particular, and we were down at Fort Myers Beach one time. This is before we started clerking, right? And so we were at Fort Myers Beach at this auction, and this guy, I don't want to tell what he did. Anyway, he was a former professional who worked at a studious job. Let's just say that. And he was supposed to, he had a glass of wine in front of him. Then he got another glass of wine in front of him, and he's supposed to be clerking. And heck, the next thing you know, he gets up to go to the restroom. And it was at that point that Mary and I decided we need to clerk this sale ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was quite a mess. It was quite a mess. And, and sometimes there's audio visual where they've videotaped the event.
Yeah.
So you can go back to that or audio recording. But you can have the greatest event in the world. You can have the greatest item. You can have the most generous bidders. You can have the greatest auctioneer. And if you have me, I'm pretty sure you do. But if those numbers are not recorded correctly, you got nothing.
That's got to be tough. That's got to be tough.
It is.
At these events, I mean, it's almost like they're each like bigger than weddings. There's so many things going on, right? So sometimes things don't always go right during a setup. Tell me a good story about something that maybe lighting or music or mic or something didn't go right and you had to kind of overcome a scenario.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. There's so many. But you know what? Talking about setting up and preparing for a wedding, let me tell you about Heidi Davis and her crew at the Southwest Florida Wine. We keep talking about Southwest Florida Wine Festival, but goodness, 3 years ago, it was after COVID. I think it was 3 years ago. So we were going to be at FSW, Florida Southwestern University, and it was going to be outdoors, and it was going to be beautiful, and it was going to be great. And the Harmons and Tektronix were both there, with sound and lighting, and the weather turned. And the decision was made on Thursday night. We've got to have this inside of at FSW in their gym. It's not a gymnasium. It's the arena.
Yeah.
So they not only had to decorate the arena, right, with like 36 hours notice, they had to invent how they were going to decorate it because it had never been done. We're talking pipe and drape on a basketball court and turning it into a fundraising venue. And Heidi and Carolyn Rogers and so many others pulled together, and it was a Herculean effort. I mean, just amazing.
And nobody knows coming in what you went through.
No idea. Come in going, wow,
this is great.
This is nice.
Yeah, wow.
This is nice. Right. They had no idea. I mean, those people didn't sleep. They just kept going, and it looked great. And now, if you're going to reproduce that, and they did the next year, not nearly as much work as trying to figure out where does everything go.
Yeah, 2.5 days advance.
Yeah. And, and lighting in a place like that is so, because it's not a basketball court, right? It's here, and you have to be able to see. And for the auctioneer, he has to be able to see the faces and numbers, right? Because I watch faces. Your face tells me everything I need to know.
You probably looked at me a couple of times and go, "Yeah, Joe doesn't want this one right here."
Well, ironically enough, we were doing Harold's dinner. Harold's been on your show, and so anyway, we were doing Harold's dinner, and I knew that Jen wanted, right? She wanted in, but she was having a conversation with someone else.
Sure.
And I'm getting ready to go past her, and I kept saying, "Jen, you're not in. Are you in?" And she's got her bidder paddle sideways because I don't want to take it if she doesn't want to. And then she goes, "Oh, geez, sorry." But
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you don't want to take bids that aren't there, but the ones that are, and side conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And Scott, what's the most expensive item or one of the coolest, most rare items that you've ever auctioned off?
Oh my, that is a great question as well. I sold a week on a yacht at an event in Palm Beach, and it sold for, goodness, it's not the most expensive lot, but it sold for like $360,000, and we were able to sell it twice. But you know what? I got to give full credit, again, Southwest Florida Wine Festival. Maybe it's just because it's fresh in my mind. Dustin Vallette is from Hillsburg, California. Great guy. I've known Dustin, gosh, we've been buddies for, 15 years, let's say. It's probably been more than that. But anyway, Dustin, he wasn't supposed to, he wasn't planning on it, but I'm like, come on, Dustin, come on back. He's been here before. And so he sold a dinner, right? I think it was dinner for 12 with wine pairings with his wine, Vallette Wines. and everything was going great. And the bidding got up to $80,000. This is for a dinner at your place. Now, he's going to come in for it, right? Or he said, I'll do it anywhere in the United States that you want. It doesn't matter to me. And so anyway, we sold it at $80,000. And I'd already talked to him. I said, Dustin, what's it going to take to sell two? He goes, well, I got to come in all the way. I said, well, look, I'll signal you with two fingers, right? And then you nod your head if that's two. Well, I knew at $80,000 for a single dinner, right? He agreed, sure. So bam, I sold it twice. And someone else who was sitting at the table, I won't throw out names, but somebody else that was sitting at the table said, would he sell another one? So I went back.
Did you give the signal? Is there a
yeah. So I went like this, and I'm like questioning because I don't want to commit him to doing something he doesn't want to do. And he goes, sure. So then I asked him over the microphone because I'm like an attorney. I never ask a question I don't know the answer to. But I had to do it over the microphone so that everybody else was aware, and it would give Dustin the time to say yes.
Yeah.
And about that time, at the same table, where I'd already sold two, the other one was a little bit further away, but they all knew each other, said, if he'll do a fourth, I'll take it.
Wow.
So I'm like... And he threw his hands up and says, of course. So his lot at Southwest Florida Wine Festival, if he'd have stayed home, we wouldn't have had it. He comes to Southwest Florida Wine Festival, and we raised $320,000.
That's unbelievable. Wow. I like the sign. Because I've seen you do that many times where you go, oh, wait, hold on. We got two. We can do two. That's crazy. 4. Yeah. There's got to be a lot of signs there's got to be some sign language that goes on there.
Oh, there is. And, and with the bid spotters as well, right? The auction assistants, because I can't be all over the room. So we know what we're going to, we know when that opportunity may come up and we signal each other and
we feel like you're all over the room. You're everywhere in that room.
But I have auction assistants that really help me out there. And not everybody has auction assistants, which I don't know how they can live without, It's after that, it's just guesswork. Well, you can't be all over the room, and that's why it's so important.
Scott, I got one more question for you. I could talk to you all day about this stuff, by the way. I've learned a lot, and I think the viewers would listen to this episode and say, I didn't realize, all this goes on. As far as like branding in your business, right? I mean, you want to get the calls. You want to get the jobs. You want to get the good ones. I'm sure there's ones that you missed out on, and there's other ones you've grabbed. How do you brand yourself in your business amongst other auctioneers?
Well, and it's probably like everything else and probably like your business too. It's, and it's hard to do on a global or, a national scale, but word of mouth. Yeah. Word of mouth helps me more than anything. And so people say, oh, your website. What I find with the website is that the website gives me credibility for people who, they've heard of me and then they go to the website and they go, oh, okay. But, most people don't impulse buy a fundraising auctioneer, right? Who's at the top of the game, right? Yeah. They might impulse buy us lower guys, but at the top of the game. So that helps me, helps me a whole lot.
So there's no like organization where they can see how much you've sold or anything like that, right? There's nothing like that in your business.
No.
Like we have Zillow, we have the MLS. People could see how much I sold. They can go to my website, look at my listings. It's a little bit different for you because you can't really find, besides your stats and your reviews, of course, and things like that.
And I used to put, when I had fundraising events, I put my calendar up, right? So that people would see, how busy I was and all that. And then my competition would simply use that and they would contact them all.
Wow.
So I had to take it down because, who does that?
Yeah.
But they would look at my, my calendar and then contact them. I've never done that to anybody else and wouldn't do it like that. There's too much good business to go around.
You're right.
And, and like you said, I really only want the good ones. I only want I don't want to say good ones. Good is the charity, because I can do a small auction as long as I believe in the charity and all the work all the great work that they do.
That's part of it too, being great at what you do, learning about each auction because there's probably so many of them. And about each charity because the more your heart's in it, the better you're going to do.
Right, and it's very empowering, when you help people through their issues.
Yeah.
And when you take a small auction, and my goodness, I've got so many of them that started out small.
Yeah.
And then work their way up.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's not quick growth, right? You don't go from 100,000 to $1 million overnight,
right? Yeah.
But it's going up and it's developing. And the people of we're talking about Southwest Florida. I go all over the country, but the people in Southwest Florida, we live in a hotbed of philanthropy. I mean, it's just amazing. I talk to auctioneers from all over the country, and they tell me this, and they talk about their business. And I hope you're not listening because you don't want to move to Naples, Florida. Okay, Naples is awful for fundraising auctions. It's the best in the country.
Yeah.
And it's just because of the kind-hearted people. Someone told me one time, says, if you move to town, and we're fortunate that people move to town, if you move to town and you've moved to Naples and you want to make a big, you move to Miami, and I'm not picking on Miami, but if you move to Miami and you want to make a big splash, you have a big party.
Yeah.
If you move to Naples, you write a big check because that is so appreciated by the people that live in their respective towns.
Yeah.
Those two different things. So full cheers to Southwest Florida and all the wonderful, wonderful people.
For sure. It's a great town.
Causes.
Great town. So, Scott, the career, the success, I love it, by the way. I love seeing you. I love seeing you at charities. You're a legend. You are. You're a local celebrity and a great guy. People hear stories, right? But we always like to hear how you got to where you're at today. That's the most intriguing part of this all. It's how you got there. Take me back a little bit. Growing up, where'd you grow up at?
Well, I grew up on a farm. My parents were farmers. My grandparents were farmers. It goes way back. We came all the way back to the 1700s on the same land. Tobacco farmers in the small town of Bethel, Kentucky. Population 183 when I'm not there. You didn't just know everyone who lived there. You knew them. You knew their dogs. You knew the sound of their tractors. You could, you knew everybody.
I love that. A lot of property, small town. I want to be on a tractor with a headset, with a drink here and listening to some music like Pauly Shore and Son-in-Law. The good old flick. That deal was probably written on a napkin, that long ago, right? Things were not recorded like they are today in public records,
Right.
So what happened after that then?
So I grew up on a farm, and you do all the things, and I was a pretty good farmer.
Yeah.
My brothers and we were all very, very active. My dad was right there.
And what age is this right now?
Well, when I was 6 till I was college age,
okay.
and then in college I still got to come back during the summer.
Yeah.
You go to college and you're around all the college people, and then you come back and boom, you're riding a tobacco setter. Chink,
it's great.
Chink.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah, it was good. And we had a hay
Where'd you go to
business
college at?
Eastern Kentucky University.
Okay.
About 14,000 students. It was a great size school because you could know everybody you wanted to, but you didn't know everybody because it was big enough, but yet small enough. It reminds me of Fort Myers.
Okay.
Where some people know most of the people, but yet there's there's a big population here.
Yeah.
But it's still no trouble to know people and the movers and the shakers and all that sort of thing.
College in Kentucky, go home for the summers, work on the farm, go back to school, right?
Oh.
And then after college, what happened?
And then after college, I was talking to my friend Frank Stapleton. Frank, are you listening? Anyway, we were roommates in college, and Frank, both of us lived in Matlacha for a long time.
Great town, by the way,
I love
fishing
Matlacha.
Village.
Yes. Yeah, funky little fishing town.
Love it there.
Drinking town with a fishing problem. Yes, that's us. So anyway, Frank and I, we were talking that morning about we really wanted a fun summer job before we got into the world of work, right? And we met a guy selling whitewater raft trips.
Yeah.
And,
nice.
Yeah. And so anyway, we met the guy and we tried out, and 35 people started, 6 of us made it. And this will be year 42 for me being a whitewater raft guide in the great state of West Virginia.
Wow.
So I no longer pitched hay bales in the summer. I guided whitewater rafts, and just I've still not gotten over it. Haven't gotten enough of it. So yeah, I'm still a whitewater raft guide
Wow.
and love it.
So there's different levels, right? Of the explain how that works, because I went on one recently. A real Scott. This would be boring for you. You wouldn't even want to go on this, but it was my first time, so I wanted to kind of do it.
Sure.
Tell me about the levels of whitewater rafting. Is it 1 through 5 or something? I forget what.
Well, the international scale is 1 through 6.
Okay.
Right.
Mine was like a 1, by the way. Just so you know. I was still scared.
I bet it was better than that. And so the new river that we run is a class 4, and the
Okay.
upper gully that we run is class 5. And you know the whole thing about whitewater rafting, as long as you're in the boat, it's great fun. Everything is wonderful. And, you know, I could have done more. But then when people come out of the boat, they kind of have a different story. Now, we're able to keep most people in the boat most of the time. But still, day for day excitement. You know, I always tell people, they're like, rafting? I go, look, I love to fish too. And I can go fishing. I can catch a lot of fish. I can catch a few fish, and I can get skunked. But I'm guaranteed to hit a wave when I go whitewater rafting.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
the people I get to work with are phenomenal, and and you get to meet the greatest people going down the river because everybody's in a good mood. They didn't come there to have a bad time.
Yeah.
Right? They came there to have fun, and I get to be the ringmaster of that little circus.
Does your wife go on there with you?
Yeah, she's
she
a
does?
raft guide
Yeah.
as well. Yes, and has been for a long, you know, she's been at it almost as long as I have.
Whitewater rafting is pretty dangerous too. I didn't know that about you. That's pretty cool. You know, it's funny because some of these things you find out about people. I mean, whitewater rafting. I remember when I went on the raft beforehand, they give you this whole thing, right? If you fall off, tuck your knees, do this, don't let your feet touch the ground. I mean, I was kind of a little worried. I wasn't worried until I got to watch the video, and I thought, man, scared.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous.
Oh yeah.
Tell me a good rafting story. I mean, I'm sure you've fallen off the raft. You know, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Several times, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like you. One of the negatives of whitewater rafting, because people are like, I'm scared of that, and it's because they've seen the blooper tapes, right? It's like a stock car race. You know, people watch a stock car race, they think because it goes fast. No, because they want to see the crashes, right? They
Yeah.
want to be involved with that. And the same thing happens with whitewater rafting. You can have, you know, a great trips. I mean, just phenomenal. Just stare at the sky, stand it up, and drop it back down into the hole. Yeah, there's nothing like it. And whitewater rafting is a pretty forgiving sport. I mean, we've tested every day, but it's a pretty forgiving sport. You know, you can mess up, but the rafts are rubber and they bend, and yeah, it's a pretty forgiving.
There's a couple of times I thought we were going down, like the Titanic or something, and we stayed on. We stayed on for sure. We just, yeah.
Yeah, well, but it's fun, and you know, it's one of the few sports, right, where you can see what professionals, right, what people that were professional,
Yeah.
why. But with rafting, as long as you've got a professional in the back, you get to experience it as well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you don't get that with motorcycle riding or you know, or skydiving.
Sure.
Well, I guess you can with skydiving. You can be tandem on as long as you've got the guts to jump out of the plane. But whitewater rafting is just so much fun, and it's just so good, and I just can't wait to get up there and do it again.
That's great. What about after college, right? So tell me kind of your careers after college.
Oh, that stuff.
Yeah. You know,
Well, whitewater rafting was fun, but I figured out pretty quick that you couldn't make a living being just a raft guy. And I had this degree that I needed to work on. So I thought I wanted to be a ski instructor, and my parents sternly convinced me, no, you need to go get a job.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up in Florida, was I'm like, well, I got to get a job. I think I'll move south. I don't want to move north. I'm in Kentucky. And if I'm going to move south, I might as well go to Florida. And I like the Gulf Coast side better than the East Coast side. So there. And that's how I made my decision. Came down, interviewed in Fort Myers, got a job. I'd never been to Fort Myers. Got a job teaching middle school. And I thought, I'll do it for a year.
What school is that? Was it St. Francis? It wasn't. What school was it?
That was Lee Middle School.
Okay.
Lee Middle School. And then the next year I came back. I couldn't believe it. They invited me back, but they invited me back. And then I had a chance to go. There was an opening at Cape Coral High School.
Okay.
And so that's where I spent the rest of my teaching career
Yeah.
was at Cape Coral High School. In fact, your wife, Jen, was a student at Cape Coral High
That's
School
right.
when I was there.
That's right. Unbelievable. And she said, Scott was my old teacher. And I said, no way. That's really cool. So as far as becoming an auctioneer, how did you lead into this path right here?
Boy, you asked me the right question again. So I'm teaching school, right? And I've taught for about 10 years, and it's 1994, and I've taught for about 10 years. And it was the first day of school with students. And I'd always wanted to be an auctioneer. I grew up going to auctions with the farm and everything like that, and my tobacco auctions and cattle auctions, and I got to work at those a little bit. And so I come home from school the first day, and I'm like, there has got to be a better way to make a living. And I looked in the yellow pages. Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So I look in the yellow pages just to look for an auction house, right? Or somebody that I could just go work for. And there was this little bitty ad, one liner, said Florida Auctioneer Academy. I don't impulse buy anything. I called them up. I booked the class. My wife comes home from her job teaching, and she goes, so how was your day? I said, I'm going to auction school. And she says, you're doing what? We hadn't talked about it at all. She had no idea. And so she says, I just assumed he was having a midlife crisis.
Oh.
But that's how it started, and this is where we are.
It took off from there.
Yes.
That's impressive. And look at you now.
Yeah.
You're all grown up now, Scott. Now, I really appreciate this. You know, this is great. You know, a lot of times successful people start off with a routine, right? They need a morning routine. Tell me about your mornings.
Well, right, I get out of bed, and I've always taken a glass of water with me to bed, a big 16-ounce Tervis tumbler. And the first thing I do is I drink that water from top to bottom because I know my body's dehydrated. Then I go out and I flip on the coffee maker because I've made the coffee the night before, and I take that time while the coffee's percolating to put out the yoga mat and do stretches.
I like the prep work beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to teach my kids this stuff, Scott.
It's so much easier.
Just before, just get your baseball clothes and your hat, put them in the bag, get them ready. That way in the morning,
all you got to do is
you
grab the bag.
can have your Tervis tumbler next to you.
Exactly right.
So what time do you get up?
We get up pretty early at my house, 6 o'clock.
Okay. So we're up. Yeah, we're on the same time. That's great.
Yeah, don't expect me to be going at midnight, but yeah, 6 o'clock. Well, it's just there's fewer distractions.
Yeah.
Right. And
you mentioned fishing. You like to fish.
Love to fish.
Getting up and watching the sun rise on the water. Anything better than that?
Oh, no, and that's when the bait's the best to catch too.
Yeah,
right.
It is.
So, and we have a boat. You know, we live in Matlacha, and boats hanging right outside. You know, right outside.
Nothing better.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing better. So throughout the day, obviously, you're an early riser. So as far as the light switch at night, can you shut it off and go to bed?
Yeah, I really can.
Yeah.
And about 10 o'clock is about good for me. Plus, I taught high school for so long, right? So you had to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning. And my wife and I both did. And so, yeah, about 10 o'clock.
Without thoughts going, you could just shut it off.
Yeah, but that's because I've been thinking all day long. Now, in the morning, I'm pretty fired up and ready to go.
Yeah. No, I love that.
So I try to get everything done before I open my email because I know as soon as I open email, right, go to my office and open up the email, time's going to pass away.
Yeah.
So I try to get everything else done ahead of time,
Same
including
here.
working out, right? I used to run. Now I walk and listen to books on tape.
Yeah.
And
listen to the Joe Pavich podcast, you know.
Oh, my goodness. I can't wait for the next one.
Next one's going to be you.
I tell you what, I listened to yours with Harold. Oh, my goodness, Chef Harold. One of my favorite people, and boy, his restaurant is just, Harold's, it's phenomenal.
The best.
You know, I love to turn it on. People from Naples, I owe somebody something, right? I give them a gift certificate to Harold's, and it's so funny because they all tell the same story. And I came up for it, and it takes them a month to get here because, you know, the road from Naples to Fort Myers is much longer than the road from Fort Myers to Naples. Yeah. So they come up, and then they find out that they're in a strip center, and they think they're in the wrong place, and there's a massage place over there,
that's right.
and a nail salon, and then the next thing you know, they see a sign that says Harold's, and then they're like half afraid to go in, and then they go in, and boom.
That's it. Now they're hooked. Now they're buying gift cards for their friends.
Yes. Oh, there's Harold's. There's nothing better than Harold's. Oh my goodness!
Those
And you were there at the wine festival when we sold a dinner at Harold's
Yeah.
for $1,500, and we sold 88.
I know. Yeah, me and Jen will be at the one this year.
88.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He better have them buffalo cauliflowers that night, though.
Well, I tell you what, his food is just phenomenal. His wine selection is phenomenal.
It's the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Couple questions. Are you a movie guy?
You know, I am not a movie theater guy because we live in Matlacha, and getting to the movies is just too.
Is there a movie theater out there? There's not, is there? Yeah.
We don't even have a gas station.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah, I go to the movie theater. Yeah.
Yeah, so we just wait for it to come out on Netflix.
Okay.
I love Netflix, right? That's our friend. But as far as darkening the door of a movie theater, love the thought, it's just too far for us to go.
But Netflix, you watch shows on TV.
Oh, yeah.
We're watching House of Dragons right now.
Oh.
Game of Thrones, House of Dragons. Have you seen it?
I have not.
If you blink, you'll feel like you got the wrong show on. A lot of moving parts in that show. Me and Jen watch tons of shows, series, shows, the whole 9 yards. How about music?
Oh.
What kind of music?
I'm a rock and roll guy, right? Disco came about, and I was no disco for me. But the Rolling Stones. I haven't missed a tour since 1978.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I've missed one tour since 1978.
Wow.
One. It's kind of like Wine Fest. I've missed one, but I missed one tour, and you know why I missed that tour? Because I thought their tickets were just too overpriced.
Yeah.
Stupid me. Why didn't I just buy the doggone ticket?
Yeah, music is big in our family too. My brother plays music as well, like I do. But no, he plays music and he's awesome at it. But music's a big part of us, My wife's into country music big time.
Really?
So I'm kind of not really into country. I do like a couple band, like Chris Stapleton. I like him. I mean, there's some other ones I like as well, but he's a star for sure.
Well, how's this for irony? So I'm driving down here today. I'm driving to here today. And I'm listening to Harold's podcast, you and Harold's podcast. Yeah. You were talking about him. He was talking about jumping out of an airplane, right? I kid you not. So I had it on channel 63, which is Chris Stapleton's. I do listen to that. Yeah. And what song was he singing? Parachute.
Wow.
I swear to God. Yeah.
That's great. Irony, right? I guess.
No, the irony was great. Yeah. The irony was great.
How about restaurants in town? What's your favorite restaurant?
Oh, well, we already talked about Harold's is fantastic and great, but I got to tell you, I'm going to give a shout out to my friends in Matlacha. We are so fortunate that we have three really good restaurants,
yeah.
Two that I find they're just exceptional. So for breakfast and lunch, the Perfect Cup. It's right at the end of my street, Island Avenue, the Perfect Cup. It doesn't look like much from the outside. On the inside, it's phenomenal, right? And it's great for breakfast and for lunch. And I'll put the Reuben sandwich up against anybody's.
Oh, I love Reubens.
And I'm a connoisseur of Reubens too, yes. And then for lunch and dinner, and I mean, both these places find us at least once a week. It's called the Blue Dog.
Okay.
And it's in the old Mulletville building, if you know where that is. It's close to the park.
Yeah.
And their
You
food,
can pull your boat right up there, can't you?
It's a little silted in right now, the canal is. But Bert's Bar we used to.
Bert's, that's what I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, Bert's is no longer with us, unfortunately. But, we used to never go to Bert's by car. We only went by boat. I don't care how cold it was. We went by boat.
Day after fishing.
Yeah.
Day after fishing, pull right up.
Oh, fantastic. But the Blue Dog has just phenomenal food, phenomenal seafood, and it's great. And there's also the Yucatan out there, which is the facility is just amazing. It used to be the Sandy Hook. And then the person that owns it now just has done a phenomenal job. So don't be afraid to come to Matlacha, folks. It's worth the trip.
Absolutely. So, my shows are all about inspiration, stories, the grind, learning different businesses, learning about people. And I always like to get some words from the wise from the guests. Give the viewers a little words from the wise.
Well, I would say, never give up. When you're tired, just keep going.
Keep pushing. I like that right there.
Keep going.
That's good right there. That's a good words from the wise. Because, a lot of times people do give up because things aren't easy, right?
Oh.
No matter what we do, people look at what we do and think that life is easy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my final thoughts from today, is that it's not easy. And these careers that we have, they're tough. We go through ups and downs. We go through struggles. In my business and yours, you have to keep pushing forward. When the economy's down, your business, right? People aren't bidding as much. When it's down for me, people aren't buying as much. But it's all about the grind. It's all about pushing through, staying positive, being a good person, staying the same. You want to be the same guy you've always been. When people come back to you from high school and say, Scott, you're the same guy. It's good to hear.
Exactly right. That's who you should be.
That's what it's all about.
Because you're really based upon your roots. But I'm going to ask you, Joe, do you know the difference between a big shot and a little shot?
No.
A big shot is a little shot that just kept on shooting.
What a show, guys. Hey, Scott, thank you. I really appreciate you. I like the words from the wise, and, that's a nice little mic drop at the end. So, listen, thank you. I appreciate you. And tell the audience how they can find you.
Well, I'm fairly easy. It's Scott@championauctioneer.com. And, of course, my website is championauctioneer.com. And my phone number is 239-246-2139. I don't play hard to get.
Yeah, easy to reach. Scott, it's been a real pleasure. Seriously, I really enjoyed you today, learning a little bit more about you. And that's what the show is all about, getting to know people and developing better relationships.
And, Joe, thank you for everything that you do, and you and Jen, and supporting local charities. I mean, it takes a village, and we're both proud members of that village.
Yeah, yes, we are. Hope you guys enjoyed the show with Scott Robertson. Please listen, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, subscribe. This show is all about the people. It's all about the stories, the grind, morning routine, work-life mix. Enjoy it. Hope you did.